And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of building an island base. Once Colonel Bleep and his friends were back on 00 Island, little Squeek could wait no longer to build a home. In fact, Squeek had already drawn a sketch of the kind of house he dreamed of, with picket fence and a garden for flowers and vegetables. But how can you build a house without the tools of the carpenter's trade? You know, a carpenter is an expert in the use of hammers and saws and planes and chisels. But Squeek and Scratch had no tools. However, they did have Colonel Bleep, who brought with him from outer space atomic energy, the power of the future, stronger even than atomic energy. And so, Bleep threw the F-energizer switch. And suddenly there was a beautiful little house for Squeek with a huge cave underneath for Scratch. And completely covering the entire island was a gigantic plastic-like dome to protect them from bad weather and insects, and which would also serve as a giant laboratory for Bleep's experiments and research. But Squeek and Scratch could not linger long in their house and cave because Colonel Bleep reminded them it was travel time again, this time to see the Belgian Congo. Here we go! Looking down on the continent of Africa from high in the sky, Bleep, Squeek, and Scratch see that the Belgian Congo looks something like an ivy leaf. The stem touches the Atlantic Ocean on the west, and the central vein of the leaf is formed by the Congo River, which curves some 3,000 miles into the interior and is the only river in the world that crosses the equator twice. The capital city of Leopoldville is a modern, busy riverport. Half of the Belgian Congo is covered by dense equatorial jungle, with a temperature in the 80s almost every day of the year. If Bleep and his friends were to crash in this land, they would find jungles that are almost useless to man. Few tropical fruits grow here, and in fact, until recently, the natives lived almost entirely on game they snared or shot with bow and arrow. Today, civilization is moving into the Congo, and the wild animals, antelope, zebra, rhinoceros, hippopotamus, and gorilla are slowly disappearing except in the game reserves, and the natives are being taught modern farming methods. The Belgian Congo was first opened to Europeans by Henry Morton Stanley, the American newspaper man, the same Mr. Stanley who said, "Dr. Livingston, I presume." To most people, the Belgian Congo would not be considered a very pleasant place to live, but it is an interesting place for Bleep, Squeek, and Scratch to visit. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Earth from outer space. Colonel Bleep, Squeek, and Scratch are on their way to outer space for a moon's eye view of our planet, Earth. Here, hundreds of miles above the Earth, they see our planet as a huge round ball speeding through space in its endless orbit around the sun. The Earth completes a full circle around the sun every 364 1/4 days, which is exactly 1 year by our calendar. And as it moves, it also spins completely around, once every 24 hours, 1 full day by our clock. This means only half of the Earth faces the brilliance of the sun at a time, that side being aglow with daylight. But as that side turns from the sun, the daylight fades into the darkness we call night.
Woo! Woo!
billions of years ago, the Earth was probably blazing hot, like the sun. But through the ages, its surface has gradually cooled to form the rock, soil, and salty oceans we know and live upon today. But if Bleep and his friends were to remove a slice from our Earth, like a piece of melon, inside they would discover a center of fiery, molten rock. Yes, no matter how you look at it, from the ground or from deep in outer space, this Earth of ours is an exciting place for Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch to investigate. But it can be even more exciting close up. So now the spaceman dives earthward for a closer look at one of the cities in which the people of this planet work, live, and play. As Colonel Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch peeked down through the clouds, they found the city of New Orleans, Louisiana, cradled within the wide sweeping curves of the mighty Mississippi River. Today, the romantic riverboats of yesteryear have been replaced by modern barges and swift ocean-going freighters, which have made New Orleans the second largest United States port. Colonel Bleep admired the towering buildings in the business district, and Scratch was fascinated by the colorful flags of the International Trademark Building. Meanwhile, Squeak had spotted Canal Street, the widest street in the nation, and it seemed the whole city was aglow with excitement. This was the season of the Mardi Gras, that festive celebration that attracts thousands to New Orleans every spring. Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch landed atop one of the most beautiful floats in the parade, and the people cheered wildly because Bleep and his friends looked just like three happy paraders, disguised in weird costumes of the past, present, and future. The parade took them through the quaint French Quarter, past colorful gardens, massive grilled gates, ornamental wrought iron balconies, antiquated street lamps, and Basin Street, birthplace of Dixieland jazz. But for Scratch, the best thing of all was sampling the chef's prize Creole cooking in the world-famous New Orleans restaurant. Yes, New Orleans is a picturesque and exciting city for Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Exposed. It is early morning on Colonel Bleep's 00 Island headquarters. And for the third time this week, Space Deputies Squeak and Scratch are scheduled for a practice space scooter flight to the moon and back.
Space Cadets, fall in. Space Cadets, report.
Quickly, the caveman and the puppet report their scooters have been double-checked, their flight instructions carefully read, and preparations made for all possible emergencies. But no one has noticed that during Bleep's pre-flight inspection quiz, little Squeak had secretly kept his fingers carefully crossed. Since he had safely completed this same practice flight twice before, the puppet hadn't bothered to double-check his scooter, study his flight instructions, or even prepare for emergencies. Worse, the cocky Squeak had laughed to himself as he watched Scratch follow Bleep's flight rules to the letter. There goes the signal.
3, 2, 1, scramble.
They're off. Already, Squeak is in for trouble, for by neglecting to double-check his scooter, he failed to notice his fuel tank is nearly empty. Luckily, however, he is able to land and quickly refuel without being seen by Colonel Bleep. By this time, Scratch was well on his way. He had studied his flight instructions and was able to avoid a heavy rain cloud which loomed directly on his course. The caveman obeyed every flying rule of outer space. Stopped at all stop signs. Waited at all space train crossings. And, of course, followed all detour instructions, just as a good space deputy should. Meanwhile, little Squeak, already behind schedule, is quickly delayed again. Having failed to study his flight instructions, he is unable to avoid the heavy rain cloud. To make matters worse, his wipers bogged down from the dirt on his unpolished windshield. When, at last, the puppet recovers his bearings, good old Scratch is rounding the moon and heading back home. In a desperate effort to make up lost time, Squeak streaks for a shortcut, completely ignoring the sign which reads, "Dangerous passage, keep out." Too late, the puppet learns his mistake, for the cave-in traps him deep inside. At 00 Island, Scratch skids to a halt to wait for his friend. As time passes, the puppet still does not arrive, and so Scratch retraces his course and finally spots the familiar cowboy hat of the little puppet. As he is fully prepared for all emergencies, the caveman is able to free his helpless companion and save him from a terrible fate. And so, thanks to good old Scratch, the careless puppet arrives at last, safe and sound, back on 00 Island. With a sigh of relief, Squeak discovers Colonel Bleep is still unaware of his carelessness. But seconds later, little Squeak receives the shock of his life, for Bleep is unveiling his very latest invention, a Futomic photo memorizer. With this clever device attached to the powerful radar scanner, the spaceman is able to make a motion picture record of the morning training flights. The puppet's heart is in his mouth as he watches Bleep's movie reveal each step of Scratch's flight to the moon and back. Shaking with fear, Squeak listens as Bleep congratulates the caveman on his excellent flying. Then the Colonel turns to Squeak, and the puppet faints dead away, for he knows the next movie will expose his carelessness forever. But luck was still with the puppet, for Bleep had only taken pictures of Scratch's flight. Tomorrow was the day when Squeak's test would be photographed. And you can just bet that tomorrow will be different, for the puppet has learned his lesson.
And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the FIREBOMB. Of all the wonders of Futurian space science, none is more valuable to the people of the universe than Colonel Bleep's fantastic invention, the Futurian robot. One by one, these mechanical marvels have been skillfully trained to master every important duty of modern space life. The Master Robot Guidex is in full command of busy Space Station X-1. Control Robot Synchro guides all traffic through the Milky Way Turnpike. Special mechanical engineers man all interplanetary transportation craft, from roaring space trains to small but speedy skyway cars. Step aboard, please. Indeed, without these skillful mechanical men on the job, interplanetary space life would quickly grind to a halt. But there is no need to worry about that, for there is enough high-precision Robolube in the great Futurian oil well to keep every robot running on perfect schedule forever. Fill me up, please. Yes, my clever mechanical friends. Fill up while you can, for at midnight you shall be dry. First, I shall empty your tanks. Then this powerful firebomb is set to explode at 12 to destroy your life-giving oil well. Up, Grizzo! There's work to be done. Sizzling Saturn, Doctor Destructo and his pet gorilla are off to empty the oil tanks and set fire to the Robolube oil well. At Futurian Fire Control Center, a powerful fire detector scans the sleeping sky. Ever alert for the telltale smell of smoke. Smoke! Great galaxies, Grizzo's firebomb has exploded on schedule. The Robolube oil well is a mass of blaze. Robot firemen leap to the call. But look, Destructo has emptied the tank. The entire brigade is grinding to a halt. The wicked plan is working. The mechanical robots have stopped. There's no one left to put out the fire. Hold everything. Here comes Colonel Bleep with Squeek and Scratch. They'll put out the fire. But how? The Colonel knows the frosty foam from this supercharge of frigid plutonium 505 will do the job if it can only be placed directly into the blazing oil shaft. But who could survive those terrible flames? Without delay, the fearless deputies volunteer. But little Squeak is a puppet made of wood. Surely he cannot go. And Scratch? But where is Scratch? Oh, no! There on the robot fire truck! It's the caveman himself inside a fireproof fireman suit! There he goes! Carrying Bleep's supercharge of foamy frigid plutonium! He's risking his life to save the priceless robot oil supply! It's working! The flames are dying down! The fire is out! Hooray! And there's good old Scratch, safe and sound in his fireproof fireman suit. And so, for his bravery, the gallant caveman was made honorary chief of the Futurian Robot Fire Brigade. All of which goes to prove that oil's well that ends well.
And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Ghastly Ghost. The stars of the heavens twinkle softly this night, for all is peaceful throughout the universe. Then, suddenly, a speeding object streaks towards the Earth, heading straight for the island base of Colonel Bleep. Instantly, the searching eye of the Colonel's roto-scanner spots the approaching invader.
Red alert! Red alert! Prepare for attack!
But wait, the saucer streaks right past 00 Island.
All clear! All clear! Danger is past!
But is the danger past? Colonel Bleep is not so sure, for there was something very familiar about that mysterious flying object. Through his powerful scanner, Bleep continues to track the saucer, watching it finally dip to Earth at the base of the giant pyramids of Egypt, some 3,000 miles away. Now the Colonel knows that the danger is only beginning, for this is the sinister flying saucer of Doctor Destructo, master criminal of outer space. Yes, Destructo has come to Earth to rob the treasure-rich tombs of the ancient Egyptian rulers. Quickly, the Doctor's trained baboons begin the plunder, bringing load after load of the precious treasure from the first pyramid to their wicked master. Already, however, Bleep and his trusty space deputies are on their way with a plan to catch the thieving villains by surprise. Now only 2 pyramids remain untouched, but which will Destructo rob next? The Colonel knows they must watch both, and so he sends Squeek and Scratch to guard the first, while Bleep prepares to protect the second pyramid. The trap is set. Now they can only wait. But unknown to Bleep and his friends, Destructo's sly baboons have figured out Bleep's plan. Disguised as mummies, these terrible creatures are already watching the puppet and caveman's every move. Them now, the wicked baboons scoop up the treasure and run. But look, it's another mummy, a giant mummy. Even Destructo shakes with fright, then flees for his very life just as fast as his saucer can carry him. But now, the giant mummy turns to Bleep. Here it comes! Run, Colonel! Run! But Colonel Bleep is laughing so hard he can't even move. And no wonder. Just look at that giant mummy now. It's actually only little Squeak riding piggyback on good old Scratch. Yes, the night had ended on a laugh, and in no time at all, the Egyptian treasure was safely back in place. So, once again, Doctor Destructo has learned that trickery does not pay. For this time, his trick had come back to haunt him. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Greedy Gorilla. The space lanes of the universe are filled with flying craft of every description. Heavy cargo cruisers speed from planet to planet. Long-range cruisers streak through the galaxy turnpike. Mile-long space trains depart on split-second schedules at Space Station X1, crossroads of the universe. Indeed, the spaceships of the galaxies are marvels of the space age. But in all the universe, there is no spacecraft which can compare with Colonel Bleep's Wonder Rocket, the Travelab, flagship of the Interplanetary Space Command, the biggest, fastest, most powerful spaceship of them all.
Yes, Grizzo. Bleep's Wonder Rocket is the most powerful spaceship of all now. But this super strong plutonic time bomb will soon blow the Travelab to smithereens. Listen, Grizzo. Listen to my plan.
Great galaxies, the evil villain and his grisly gorilla are planning to plant that terrible time bomb aboard the Colonel's super spaceship. Bleep, Squeek, and Scratch are in terrible danger, yet completely unaware of Destructo's wicked scheme. At this very moment, the unsuspecting spaceman sits in the pilot cabin, skillfully guiding the mighty rocket along its course, while Space Deputy Scratch mans the power controls in response to the Colonel's command. And there's little Squeak, hard at work in the galley, preparing supper for the hungry crew. Just look at that luscious chocolate pie he's placed by the galley porthole to cool.
Yes, Grizzo, just look at that pie. It's the perfect hiding place for our deadly time bomb. It will never be found there until it's too late. Off you go, Grizzo. Straight for the Travelab.
Sizzling Saturn, there he goes. The Travelab is doomed. In only minutes, Destructo's trained gorilla arrives unseen alongside the Wonder Rocket. Quickly, the beast hides the deadly time bomb inside the chocolate pie. Look, the wicked deed is done. Squeak has taken the chocolate pie inside the Travelab, and the bomb is inside the pie. But now, as Grizzo turns to flee, the puppet places still another luscious pie near the very same porthole. And this one is covered with scrumptious coconut.
Coconut. That's me favorite food.
In a flash, the gorilla steals Squeak's second pie. But wait, that isn't a second pie at all. It's the very same chocolate pie that contains Destructo's deadly bomb. Little Squeak only removed the chocolate pie from the porthole long enough to add the coconut topping. And that's the very same pie Grizzo has now. A short time later, Destructo greets his returning henchman.
Good boy, Grizzo. The bomb is set to explode in just 3 seconds. Bleep's Wonder Rocket will be destroyed forever.
That's great, boss. Then we can celebrate with a big slice of this delicious coconut pie.
And that's the story
of how little Squeak lost a coconut pie and saved a spaceship thanks to a greedy gorilla who was gone on coconut.
And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Invisible Gorilla. Just imagine coconut pie every single day. It all began when Colonel Bleep discovered a secret way to make a powerful rocket fuel from coconut milk. And every nut the Colonel drained for milk also contained the makings for a scrumptious pie for Squeak and Scratch. Jug after jug of fresh coconut flight fuel now lined the shelves of Bleep's laboratory. And with 00 Island's big supply of coconuts, the Colonel was sure his space scooter squadron would never be grounded for lack of this super fuel. But unknown to Bleep, the wicked Doctor Destructo had somehow learned of the Colonel's discovery. Already, the evil doctor has thought up a plan for destroying every single coconut on the island. His secret weapon is Grizzle, the trained gorilla, the hungriest coconut-eating beast in the whole wide universe. For 7 days, Grizzle has not been fed, and for 7 days, the starving gorilla has dreamed of nothing but his favorite food, coconuts. Thousands and thousands of luscious, sweet coconuts.
Come, Grizzle. Are you hungry, Grizzle? Good boy, Grizzle. Today you will eat every juicy coconut on 00 Island. Do you understand, Grizzle? Good boy. But first, we must make you invisible. Aha, good. Now, off you go. And remember, every coconut on the island, Grizzle.
The next morning, there was serious trouble on Bleep's island base. Poor Scratch had found only one coconut in the whole jungle. This meant an end to Bleep's rocket fuel discovery. And even worse, to Squeak and Scratch, it meant no more of those luscious coconut pies. With great care, Bleep drained each precious drop of milk from the last remaining coconut and quickly processed it into rocket fuel. With equal care, the puppet prepared their last coconut pie. But in a flash, the pie was gone, leaving a bewildered Scratch holding the empty plate. Sure that the caveman had greedily eaten the whole pie himself, the Colonel ordered Scratch to sit in the corner and not move until the clock chimes 2. While the obedient Scratch sat perfectly still, serving out his punishment, Bleep and Squeak were unaware that an invisible gorilla was the real thief. Then Grizzle struck again. Still, the caveman sat in motionless silence, faithfully following Bleep's unfortunate command. Now, all this activity had given Grizzle a powerful appetite, and he sped off at once to Bleep's laboratory workshop, where he smelled the delicious aroma of coconut milk. At that very moment, Scratch's punishment ended, and the caveman arrived on the scene just in time to see the hungry Grizzle guzzle down jug after jug of Bleep's powerful, bubbling rocket fuel. Scratch blinked in awe. So this was the culprit that caused all the trouble. Silently, the caveman strikes back. Sending Grizzle and his explosive payload straight as a flaming arrow back to his wicked master. Yes, Scratch has saved the day. So, for faithful obedience and heroic service, Bleep promised him a reward. And what prize do you think the caveman chose? Why, a delicious coconut pie, of course. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Manhunt on the Moon. Interplanetary investigator Colonel Bleep and his space deputies, Squeek and Scratch, floated to a stop just above the surface of the moon. They were searching for some trace of the terrible Doctor Destructo among the thousands of crater marks that dotted the strange landscape. To Bleep, it appeared that these craters might have been caused by thousands of meteors crashing down at terrific speed. But many scientists believe the strange markings are the scars of a tremendous bubbling action caused when hot internal gases escaped to the outer surface back when the moon was soft and pliable. Scratch, however, imagined the many craters had been left long ago by violent volcanic eruptions, similar to those the planet Earth had experienced from time to time. Then, something below caught their attention. Glistening in the sun at the very top of Mount Leibniz, the moon's highest visible peak, stood a strange tower. It closely resembled the man-made structure called the Eiffel Tower, which is a familiar landmark on Earth, in the city of Paris. Diving down for a closer look, Bleep and his friends found a huge reflecting mirror with a powerful lens attached to the top of the tower. This had been the moon power device used by Doctor Destructo not long ago to guide the runaway rocket straight down toward 00 Island. While Bleep and Squeak searched for clues, Scratch peered through the powerful lens for a telescopic view of the Earth beyond. But as he looked, he froze with horror. For there, with one foot on South America and the other on South Africa, stood a tremendous black giant. Actually, it was only a highly magnified shadow of the caveman himself, projected nearly 250,000 miles through space by the light of the moon. But the sight was so terrifying, the frightened Scratch fell over backwards and tumbled down to almost certain death on the rocks below. Squeak looked up just in time to see his helpless companion falling straight down upon the puppet himself. Squeak couldn't move or even call for help. He could only cover his eyes and wait for the bone-splintering crash. He waited for the end, and waited, and waited, but nothing happened. Then Squeak opened his eyes just as Scratch gently floated into his arms. For you see, the gravity pull of the moon is only 1/6 as great as Earth, so Scratch almost floated down that great distance like a feather to land unharmed in the arms of little Squeak. Suddenly, Bleep urgently signaled his companions. He had found still another clue. At the base of the tower was a scrap of notebook paper covered with the hasty scrawls of Doctor Destructo's own hand. To the others, it was only a jumble of strange symbols. But to Bleep, this was a flight plan, Destructo's own flight plan. And it told the Colonel exactly where this master culprit had gone. It would take courage to follow Destructo now. For Bleep knew this place, knew it too well, and he was sure that fantastic terrors would be waiting out there. And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Nightmare. There was great excitement on 00 Island. Colonel Bleep had spent all morning hard at work in his laboratory workshop. Now, at last, Squeek and Scratch were in for a great surprise. For Bleep had built 2 gleaming new space scooters. There was one for Squeek and one for Scratch. Yes, the puppet and caveman were soon to be full-fledged flying cadets in Colonel Bleep's Space Scooter Squadron. But first, Bleep explained it takes far more than a fine scooter to make a good flying cadet. For unless a pilot knows the rules of safe flying, he is only a menace in the skyways. And so, Squeek and Scratch were instructed to memorize Bleep's Scooter Squadron flying rules as the first step to becoming cadets. Good old Scratch began studying at once, for he was determined to be a very good cadet, a credit to his squadron. But little Squeek foolishly spent his time making a flashy uniform with gleaming buttons, glittering medals, and colorful symbols. For Squeek wasn't satisfied to just be a good cadet. He was going to be the greatest flyer of them all. The Ace of Space. That night, the caveman dreamed happily of his future as a space cadet. But the puppet had already tossed aside his scooter and replaced it with a supercharged, triple-stage, high-compression, Futonic-powered cruiser. And off he goes. What speed! What power! What skill! But wait! Look out! There's a stop sign! That's no way to fly! Ace! Be careful! That's a one-way space lane! This is terrible! Someone stop him! He's buzzing the space station! That did it. Ace is really in trouble now. The entire space patrol is after him. Stop, Squeek! Stop! Before it's too late! His ship is gone. He's down. The Ace of Space is finished.
The prisoner is charged with reckless flying without a license. What is your verdict?
Guilty! Guilty! Guilty!
20 years in the prison tower.
Poor Squeek. He's fainted.
Get up, prisoner. Get up.
Get up! Get up! Get up, little Squeek. It's morning. This is the day for your first flying lesson. Now the puppet sits up and blinks and shakes his head in wonder. For thank goodness, it has all been just a terrible dream. But even a dream can sometimes teach a valuable lesson. For now Squeek knows that it takes lots of hard work and study to accomplish anything worthwhile in life. and especially to become a full-fledged flying cadet in Colonel Bleep's Space Scooter Squadron. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Runaway Rocket. It was midnight. An intense full moon beamed down on 00 Island as little Squeak slept in his cozy bed and Scratch snored loudly in his darkened cave below. All was peaceful as Colonel Bleep studied the Futonic radar scanner. With this instrument, the Colonel could watch any unusual movements in the universe. And this very night, a giant new rocket was scheduled to be launched by the United States of America from an experimental rocket launching base on the east coast of Florida. Yes, there it was. As Bleep watched the scanner, he saw the rocket soar skyward at tremendous speed, then level off towards the wastes of the South Atlantic Ocean. This was a test firing, and Bleep was pleased to see the Earth people making such excellent progress with rockets. But at that instant, something seemed to go wrong. The moon appeared to concentrate all its glowing power on the nose of the missile, forcing it to veer off its planned course and to streak instead directly towards 00 Island. In only seconds, it would come crashing down to destroy Squeak's little dream house, Scratch's peaceful cave, and Colonel Bleep's headquarters for his secret mission here on Earth. In a flash, Bleep darted into the sky to meet the speeding projectile. Quickly, he maneuvered himself between the mysterious moon rays and the onrushing missile, and with a blast of Futonic power, he brought the rocket to a screeching halt in mid-air. Using his Futurian skill in the powers of reverse propulsion, Bleep safely returned the rocket to explore the launching site, ready for use in further test flights in the future. Then Bleep hurried back to his island base to begin some very serious thinking. What was wrong on this peaceful isle? Why had Scratch recently tumbled into the open jaws of a giant sea serpent to be nearly trapped forever deep inside? Everyone knows that all sea monsters are purely imaginary and not real creatures at all, except for this particular sea serpent. Yes, this monster had been real enough. And then a terrible termite had kidnapped poor Squeak, the little wooden puppet, for a tasty dinner. But what had caused an ordinarily tiny insect to grow into a huge and terrifying monster? Bleep turned to his microscope to examine again those traces of interplanetary wood dust which he had discovered on the wings of the termite. The Colonel was sure this strange substance held a valuable clue. And that runaway rocket, the way the moon had concentrated its rays on the nose of the device, you would have almost thought it was being guided by moon powers. Colonel Bleep was certain somewhere in outer space, a powerful and evil force was being directed against Bleep and his friends. But only one person in the entire universe had such evil power. That person was Doctor Destructo. But of course, Doctor Destructo was at this moment a prisoner in a space bubble anchored in the outer ring of Saturn. Or was he? Bleep had to be sure. He switched on his Futonic frequency transmitter and directed a secret code message to the Interplanetary Intelligence High Command on the planet Futura. Advise status of Doctor Destructo immediately. Soon, Bleep would have his reply. But meanwhile, another day was beginning on 00 Island. And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Satellite of Death. This is the day for Scratch's first solo flight as a flying cadet in Colonel Bleep's Space Scooter Squadron. With a snappy salute, the caveman cadet leaps aboard his speedy craft. Then off he goes, heading straight to the north and into the wildest, most terrifying adventure of them all. Already the ground below is solidly covered with ice and snow. Around the North Pole, Scratch soars. Then, right on course, spans the desolate wastelands of outer Spagovia. Suddenly, Scratch is caught in a frigid snow cloud. The wings of his scooter bogged down with ice. Bail out, Scratch, before it's too late. Jump! Jump! Geronimo! And there he is, floating gently to Earth in a billowing parachute. But unknown to the caveman, directly below stands a tumble-down Spagovian castle. Here, the last of the power-mad warlords prepare to test their latest invention, a satellite rocket. If the test is successful, they will have found the way at last to conquer the world from outer space. Listen.
Howdy doggy, the rocket is ready for testing. But cousin, who is going to volunteer? Well, who do you think? Get in? Who, me? Nothing doing. What about you? You think I am crazy? You is going. No, you is going. He is going. Quick, cousin, stick him inside before he wakes up. If he comes back alive, he will soon rule the world. Fire when ready.
Good grief! They've done it! There goes poor Scratch, trapped inside a speeding test satellite. Meanwhile, back on 00 Island, little Squeak and Colonel Bleep desperately try to contact their missing cadet. Then, through his powerful radar scope, the Colonel sights the speeding satellite, and the X-ray attachment shows the bewildered caveman trapped inside. Rapidly, the missile circles the Earth, but Bleep knows it is doomed to crash in only a matter of minutes. Closer and closer it sweeps until suddenly it is skimming the ocean in a headlong dash toward 00 Island itself. In a flash, Bleep streaks into action. With his powerful gyro blades, he whips up a windstorm of hurricane force, slowing the Sputnik to a gentle stop. The dazed Scratch is safe at last. Now, with the speed of light, the Colonel hurriedly gathers an armload of hornet nests. In an instant, the satellite is transformed into a powerful buzz bomb. With a mighty hop, the angry spaceman sends it spinning back to its launching base. In Spagovia, the gleeful villains happily catch their returning Sputnik.
See, I told you, the test was a big success. By golly, you're right. But what's all this buzzing, cousin? Oh, what's the difference? Open it up. Inside the Sputnik is waiting the just rewards for the future rulers of all the world.
And that's the real story of how Bleep turned an apparent victory into a stinging defeat. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of Scratch and the Sea Serpent. Scratch was headed for trouble. On the shore of the lagoon near the center of the island, he had found what appeared to be the entrance to a great cave. Scratch peeked into the dark interior, squeezed between the huge white rocks at the entrance, tumbled inside, and then down he went. Down, down, down into a tunnel of darkness. Too late. Scratch realized that this wasn't a cave at all, but the inside of a gigantic sea serpent. And the great white rocks he had squeezed through were the monster's teeth gleaming in the sun. And now those giant jaws of the sea serpent had closed, trapping our caveman friend, maybe forever. Of course, little Squeak, busy in his library, and Colonel Bleep in his laboratory were unaware that Scratch was in trouble. Bleep, for some time, had been experimenting with a secret formula for changing Futonic lightning bolts into solid rods stronger than steel. That very morning, he had discovered the final missing ingredient, which Bleep called frigid plutonium 505. By creating a Futonic lightning bolt, then quickly freezing it with frigid plutonium, the bolt became a solid rod as light as a feather, yet stronger than steel. That same morning, little Squeak was in the library of his new dream home, dusting the many shelves filled with wonderful magic books. These books were magic because the pictures in them actually moved. For instance, here's a page from Treasure Island. And Jack and the Beanstalk. And here's Squeak's favorite book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, the story of the little wooden puppet who had all kinds of exciting adventures and even became a real live boy. It wasn't until about 20 minutes after Scratch disappeared down the throat of the sea serpent that Bleep and Squeak discovered he was missing. Through the Futonic radar scanner, Bleep could see every spot on 00 Island, but Scratch was nowhere to be found. Then Bleep saw a movement in the lagoon. It was the sea monster. And when Bleep switched on the X-ray vision attachment, he plainly saw that the caveman was trapped in the stomach of that serpent. In an instant, Bleep and Squeak streaked to the water's edge. With a flash, Bleep made 2 Futonic lightning bolts, sprayed them with frigid plutonium 505, and using these strong rods as stilts, they waded into the sea to catch the serpent by surprise. As Squeak pinched the monster's nose, its mouth opened and Bleep jammed the stilts between those great jaws. And before Squeak could squeak, the colonel had dashed inside the serpent to rescue their old friend Scratch. Then Bleep grabbed the beast by the tail and with super Futonic strength threw him completely out of this world. So once again, Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch are reunited. And you can just bet that Scratch will not step into any more caves without testing first to be sure that it is just a cave. And now, stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In in the exciting story of
Tunnel in Space! The Wonder Rocket Travel Lab speeds through space, past the red world of Mars, and into the belt of asteroids, gateway to the giant planet Jupiter. Inside the spaceship, Bleep and his crew prepare to land. Cut off power circuit. Roger. Activate landing generators. Roger. Set gyro governing dials. Roger. 50 leagues from touchdown. 25 leagues. 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown. They've arrived. Jupiter welcomes you. Step aboard, please. Squeak and Scratch gaze in wonder as they speed to Space Command headquarters. Jupiter City is the busiest spaceport in the solar system. Rockets depart regularly for every point in the galaxy. Every point except one. No spacecraft can safely navigate the flaming meteor belt surrounding Septa, Jupiter's seventh moon. And so Colonel Bleep has arrived to supervise the construction of a gigantic space tunnel which will span this hazardous area. Through this protective tube, spaceships will travel in safety. No longer will the deadly shower of flaming meteors be a menace to space travel. Work on the project begins immediately. Under the Colonel's careful supervision, an expert crew of Jupiter robot engineers assemble the framework of the tunnel sections. According to plan, the travel lab provides power to carry each section into proper position, while Squeak and Scratch guide its travel using their tiny space scooters like small pilot boats steering an ocean liner to port. At a given signal, release cable, the scooter pilots cut off their lines and dive for the safety of the tunnel for protection against the crashing meteors. Section after section is guided into place, each connecting to the other, until only one section remains. Carefully, the scooter cadets guide its course as the travel lab builds up power to slam the section into place. Space scooters, release cables. Scratch is free. Into the tube he dives. But little Squeak's cable is jammed. Again and again, the puppet pours on power, but the cable will not break loose. Bail out, Squeak! Wait before it's too late! Run, fella, run! Here come the meteors! Poor Squeak hasn't a chance. But wait, what's that? Why, it's Scratch, and he's flying upside. Alley-oop, he's got him! But the caveman can't reach the controls in this position. They're headed deeper into the meteor shower. They've got to turn back, but how? Look, Squeak's pants are caught. Sizzling Saturn, will the puppet's elastic arm cords hold? They did! Back they catapult at tremendous speed, safely out of the meteor storm. And so, once again, Squeak and Scratch risk their very lives to help make interplanetary space travel safe throughout the universe.
And now stand by for adventure.
3, 2, 1.
In the exciting story of the Uncharted Island. Soon after his arrival on Earth, Colonel Bleep discovered that to thoroughly investigate the places, people, and customs of our planet would require a long time, because it's almost 25,000 miles around this Earth of ours, and it's filled with many interesting and exciting things to see. So Colonel Bleep decided they must have a place to live. Bleep suggested a space platform. Scratch, Bleep's prehistoric friend, wanted a cave. And Squeek, the little silent puppet, hoped for a house and garden, or to use the one word Squeek wrote on his magic slate, a home. Colonel Bleep remembered that as he was approaching the Earth from outer space, he had seen a tiny island which might be ideally suited to their needs. This island was located in the South Atlantic Ocean at the very center of the Earth. In fact, according to Bleep, it was on the equator at 0 degrees latitude and 0 degrees longitude. This was 0 Island. That tiny uncharted land which is to be their home while Colonel Bleep carries out his mission to investigate the places, people, and customs of our planet Earth. Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch rapidly covered the distance across the Atlantic Ocean, then turned south to the equator and onto a spot of land in the South Atlantic, approximately 400 miles south of the African Gold Coast and 600 miles east of French Equatorial Africa. Here is the beautiful tropical island which Bleep has named 0 Island, because it's located exactly at 0 degrees latitude and 0 degrees longitude. Here for the first time, Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch see the delightful little green land that is to be their home for many exciting adventures. You know, an island is a mass of land smaller than a continent that is completely surrounded by water. And 0 Island is such a land. It is shaped like a crescent moon around a calm blue lagoon. The trees are filled with brilliantly plumaged birds. The woods abound with tropical fruit of many kinds. And a sparkling stream flows across the island from the eastern end to the lagoon at the center. It is here that Colonel Bleep, Squeak, and Scratch decide to establish headquarters on the planet Earth. On this pleasant island, they could work and rest. But already forces of evil are at work, and danger, great danger, lies ahead.